Well, g'day, ladies and gentlemen, if we actually can say that anymore. Welcome back to Adelaide Conservatives, as always. I'm Simon McMahon, and we are joined with Luke Munro. Luke, welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you very much. No, it's good to be here again. And yeah, we've got a few different topics to talk about today. And you've got one you want to kick off with, Simon?
Yeah, no, definitely. So one of the things in the first quarter of this year that has astounded me, for the first time in Australia's history, an electric car, the Tesla, has been outselling the majority of models out in the market, maybe even having the highest sales in the first quarter. I mean, some of the brands like Toyota and Hilux, they're starting to outsell them. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. Look, I think obviously different states have different rebates and different incentives to try and get people to buy those cars. But I really think that the main problem we've got is we don't build a car. You know, we are beholden to what the rest of the world wants to produce, and the rest of the world has decided that we're going to have these 400 or 500 kilo lithium-ion batteries in our cars, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. The automotive industry now more than ever is a global market.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're seeing different models. They're all coming out of the same factories. The same countries are making the cars. We've lost our sovereign capacity to build, manufacture cars. The loss of Ford and Holden have been a great contributor to that. It was always in the cards. You can't really run a car industry when you have some of the highest electricity prices in the world.
Well, it's not just that. It's you can't run a car industry when you're paying guys close to $100,000 a year to do spot welds either. You know, I mean, you're just not competitive with the Chinese and the Thai markets where they build a lot of cars now, or Mexico where they build a lot of cars. You just can't compete with that.
Yeah, and that was happening at the same time that the quality of those overseas markets were rising up dramatically. So
yeah,
you know,
you don't things like that sort of coming in leaps and bounds, and our stuff basically stayed the same but was expensive to build.
Yeah, and people would complain about the automotive industry leaving Australia and the nostalgia that we had. We all love our Holdens and our Fords and our bigger family cars, but you can't be anti a family who want to get a car cheaper and live a bit better. If it's the same quality and type of model, they're going to go for the cheaper model.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you know, we're not people when it comes to the hip pocket are suddenly not quite so patriotic. You know, if something's cheaper, they'll buy it. Just look at most of the stuff in your cupboard at home. You know, it'll be made in Southeast Asia somewhere or China. Most of your furniture is made in Southeast Asia or China. We're not buying too much Australian-made stuff because it costs too much.
What it means for the automotive industry, though, is you've seen a big push from places like the United States of America to push electric vehicles.
Yep.
There's no doubt that is the way the market is going. We have absolutely no control over that. It's a concern here in Australia. Obviously, we're completely different to the European market. We have vast distances to travel. We have different capabilities that our, people that are in different trades and things need. But again, it's a worldwide market. How are we going to integrate with this electric vehicle market that whether we like it or not, it's coming?
Well, we don't have a choice. That's the reality. Like, I mean, I confess, as has been mentioned before, I own a Tesla now, and son. I didn't buy it to save the world. That's for sure. I bought it because it goes 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. It's just a real fun car to drive. But it suits me because I charge it at my business. When I come into my business, I don't have to use superchargers. I don't have to use any of that network that people complain about. So it suits me, but it's not going to suit everyone. But the reality is that's the way it is. You know, we're not going to suddenly start building cars again in this country. I mean, just the amount of red tape to start anything in this country, that's gone. That ship has sailed. And the reality is we're going to be getting more and more Chinese manufacturers pushing EVs into Australia too. I mean, Tesla's already got a pretty reasonable presence here. And that's just how it's going to be. And really, the thing that Australia's going to be forced to do is spend more money on the infrastructure to keep those things going. And that's where it's going to bite. Now, for us in Australia, the reality of owning an electric car is very, very different to Europe and the United States, and even China for that matter. Like there's this myth that you get an electric car and you plug it in and you charge it off your solar panels and everything's going to be awesome. But I could tell you from a lived experience that's not how it works. I mean, my car, for instance, has an 80 kilowatt battery. So basically, if you like, an 80 kilowatt fuel tank. Now, you think about how much electricity your house uses in a week. Most people's houses would use somewhere between 80 to 120 kilowatts a week. I've essentially got a vehicle that uses as much electricity or close to as a small home to charge.
And you did the maths of that. I mean, the data's out there now. We know that it's not like the old days where, families would share one car.
Yeah.
If you look at a family network, mum's got a car, dad's got a car, the kids normally have a car. So you're tripling, quadrupling the energy market depending on which household you're in.
Yeah.
If everyone was to overnight go to an electric vehicle. Now, we know the grid at the moment, it struggles to handle what we have. There is a huge amount of infrastructure before this becomes...
Well, yeah. Look, the reality is, and I'm a numbers nerd, so I did the numbers. I worked out if every household in Australia had just one electric car in it, we would need 350 gigawatts of power production in this country. At present, we only produce 240 gigawatts of power. So where's the extra 110 gigawatts of power going to come from? I tell you right now, it's not coming from wind turbines and it's not coming from solar farms.
Well, this is the thing, because, you've got a different situation here. You own your own business, you've got solar on the house, and you're charging the big difference, you're charging your car during the day off of that.
That's correct, yeah, because it's here.
Now, the majority of people that are going to their 9 to 5 job, they're coming home and charging it at night time.
Yeah.
The sun's not too bright at night time.
No, and what people that are real advocates for electric cars will tell you, but in time we're going to have all our power walls at home and we're going to be able to charge our car while we sleep off the power wall. Well, no, that's crap. The power walls, at best at the moment, can produce hold 13 kilowatts of power. So yes, you can charge your car about an eighth of a tank while it's sitting in your driveway overnight. But then the catch-22 is, well, okay, suddenly you're drawing power from the grid to keep your heater on or your aircon on at home instead of drawing it from that battery, which is what its purpose is. So
it's the economics of it. Like, I don't think anyone thinks it's an economical way to go, I'm going to use solar during the day, I'm going to charge a battery, and then use that battery to recharge another battery to make my car go. Like, every time you do a step in that, you're losing efficiency.
Yeah, you are. And look, it actually drives me mad when I talk to people, and most people that I talk to about electric cars that are like basically love them like it's a religion. They don't even have one, and they seem to know exactly how it all works and how it's going to work and how it's going to be wonderful. But to be frank, they're all talking out of their ass, because we don't have the power for everyone in the grid for everyone to have one. And like I started off by saying, the difference between China, Europe, and the United States is they have nuclear energy. They have really good, solid baseload power, which allows, and even then, in some parts of America, they have problems with the grid because of so many people having electric cars charging. But they have that nuclear baseload, and we're trying our hardest in this country to destroy our baseload without even thinking about what's next. And what's next is not wind turbines and solar. We can never produce enough power to charge all the electric cars that are coming with renewable energy.
Well, you say it yourself, you're seeing more and more electric cars on the road. We all drive past them every day. We see them. Like, these people are charging up their electric vehicles at night time. Australia is going to be the highest producers of diesel and gas-powered electric cars, because that's what is powering our electricity grid at night.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about on this podcast before. I think we've spoken about with Ben Hood and Alex Antic.
Yeah.
The necessity to go nuclear now, for some reason the left want to keep fighting this nuclear argument, but it is the most efficient way of keeping their targets of net zero. If they want to reach net zero, the way that you should be looking at it is nuclear energy, and South Australia has this in absolute abundance.
The reality is that the longer we procrastinate and the longer we have this moronic moratorium on nuclear energy, the more pain that the lower socio-demographic, who the left is supposed to support and cherish, if you just ask them, the more it's going to affect them. Because as electricity bills keep going up, which they will, and like I said, the longer we talk about this stuff and don't put actions in place, those electricity bills, they're not going to get any cheaper. I don't care what Chris Bowen says. The man's a moron. Renewables are not going to make electricity cheaper. Yeah, that's proven. You just look at the price increases over the last decade, and what's the one thing that's come in the last decade in abundance? It's more renewables. Yet our electricity bills are 4 times what they were 10 years ago. So this whole renewable argument, unless you have that baseload, unless we get acting now, you're going to have a lot of poor people that are going to be afraid to turn the lights on.
It is already happening. So I still get contacted once or twice a month from residents down here in the southern suburbs who are retired. Their cost of living is going up. Obviously, they're on a pension, so that their ability to repay things is dramatically reducing. Their property values are going up, so council rates are going up.
Yeah.
And these people are literally making the decision to go and get more blankets and not turn their heaters on at night. I mean, we live in Australia, 2023, to have people who have worked so hard and served our country and served our economy by paying taxes for that long to be struggling to put their heater on at night is, I think, an atrocity of where we sit.
It's disgraceful. And if you talk to anyone overseas that's not so familiar with Australia, and you explain to them like what we pay for electricity and just some of our cost of living things, that they're astounded.
Considering we're the biggest exporter, we've got coal and uranium. We've got this stuff in absolute abundance, and we're sending it overseas.
LNG and all that sort of stuff. Like we have got it fundamentally wrong here, and we've got it fundamentally wrong because of ideology.
Yep.
If we get cut the ideological crap out, and let's just get down to what's actually best for Australia. And you can worry about the environment at the same time. That's fine. That famous saying, you walk and chew gum at the same time. But if we don't have that base load, which we have at our fingertips in nuclear, we're going to have some real tough times, tougher than what we've got now going forward.
So, Alex Antic, we'll put that on.
Oh, right, yeah. All right.
Sorry, Senator. I can't take your call at the moment. So, yeah, you're right. So we can walk and chew gum, and the fact that we shut coal power stations down too early because we wanted to go down this renewable is just a complete indictment on where we sit.
It's ideology, and that's trouble. Like, ideology, you look at world history, ideology kills more people than anything else. Because people over time with ideology are driven through that ideology and not through common sense. And then that leads to people suffering, that leads to people dying, and that's where we're going.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I went on Facebook and did a video sharing some interesting things that our local council here in the southern suburbs, the City of Onkaparinga, were trying to do. And one of them is they did a community survey. They went out consultation on whether we should change, and they were very keen to say it's not about changing the date, but the Australia Day events that they hold on Australia Day, being the Australia Day breakfasts, the citizenship ceremonies that they hold, the Australia Day Bush Fair, which last year they had 7,000 people attend down here at South Adelaide.
Oh, and a great local population have been screaming out for change on those things. Like, not?
Exactly. So they put out this community consultation, and they said it's not about changing the date. When we went to the community consultation, every question was, should we change the day of the Australia Day Bush Fair? Well, it's the Australia Day Bush Fair. I'm not sure why we change that date. Should we change the day
Bush Fair anymore, which I think is what the idea is, or what they're trying to achieve?
Well, should we change the day of the Australia Day breakfast? Should we change the day of the Australia Day awards the City of Onkaparinga have? Like, this is absolutely ludicrous. So I went to Facebook. I did a video to share to try and let residents know that this is actually happening, because the way I saw it, it was only being shared with special interest groups that associate with the left, and all the flips off groups,
which is usually the case with your say stuff.
Yeah, so it's always loaded on the social media warriors of the left, and they use that small data set to say the whole community wants to see change.
Yeah.
So we decided we'll do something about it. We saw this going be, if you follow previous sort of community engagements, we thought it might be 75 to 80% of people saying they want change. They're targeting
magically. Yeah.
Senator Alex Antic shared my video. That was really helpful.
Yeah, that was good.
That sort of got it out to a wider audience, and we managed to fight it enough. And I went to the session on this the other night at the City of Onkaparinga. The community consultation came in. It finished on the 2nd of July, and it was pretty much split right down the middle. We did enough to stop that avalanche of community interest groups and their warriors of probably one person filling out the survey 100 times.
Yeah.
Now, that obviously was a bit alarming to the new mayor.
What you mean? That wasn't the result they were after?
Well,
surprise.
I've subsequently gone and asked some further questions.
Yeah.
Because it appears now that because that was split down the middle with neither change or no change getting over 50%, and about 6 or 7% undecided, I thought I'd ask a few probing questions, because that's not the sort of community that I sort of have been hearing out and about on the streets.
Yeah.
They've extended the community consultation now from the 2nd of July to the 23rd of July. They have taken down the roadside banners.
I just say I haven't seen that advertised anywhere. What?
We've not seen it on their Facebook page, which they advertise all their Your Say events on. We've not seen it on any of the mayor or local ward councillors' Facebook pages. They were advertising it heavily before.
Yeah.
They've taken down their roadside banners that promote the community Your Say.
So what you're really saying is that they've extended it, and no one's actually aware, except for the people they want to be aware of it.
Well, here's the kicker. We hear now that they've taken a survey after the date to NAIDOC Week events.
Wow, what a surprise.
Remarkably, 80% of participants at those events are in favour of changing the date. Which, by the way, that's fair enough. They can have that view.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at community consultation and you're going to start to go to NAIDOC Week events, Neferendi events, and tell no one else, well, of course you're going to skew your data.
Yeah.
Why not going to the Australia Day events? And here's the other kicker. It was 313 people that have put into the survey so far, out of 180,000 residents in the city of Onkaparinga.
Yes.
They're targeting the people they want, and they still can't get this over the line.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. Those Your Say things, I think, are they're toilet paper. I mean, that to get 200 or 300 people, or sometimes less, actually put in an opinion, and then the council is supposed to make a decision based on that result, like saying that it's some representation of what the community wants. It's just BS.
Well, they're going to try and make a result out of 313 people split right down the middle.
It won't be that now, because I'll get an extra couple of hundred from the people that they're going to ask that are loaded questions. They already know what they're going to give them. So yeah, it's just not even worth the paper it's written on.
It is ridiculous. But the reason why it's so important is Onkaparinga is South Australia's largest council.
Yeah.
They make the move, and then you start to see things like Mitcham and Adelaide and all the other ones start to fall in line. Then that death by 1,000 cuts will happen, and we can't allow it to happen. So if anyone is listening out there, you have until the 23rd or 24th of July. Head to the City of Onkaparinga Your Say page. We really want to stay competitive to keep this left keyboard warriors at bay. Make sure you get your family, your friends, everyone to go on there, fill out the survey and say, we do not want to see this change. Stop messing around with pretty much federal issues.
It's a real shame that it's really shameful that we have to do that to try and get a more balanced view, because they're not interested in a balanced view. They're just interested in railroading a decision through council to suit their ideology, like I talked about before. And that's not how things should be done.
And I think when a report like that came onto my desk, and I said, okay, we've got 313 people out of 180,000 people. It's split right down the middle. How's that community consultation going?
Like 43, 42, or so. It was like, there was nothing definitive about it, and of undecided. Yeah.
But then you go, hang on a minute, 7,000 people attended the event.
Yeah,
last Australia Day.
And none of those people would have even been aware.
That those 7,000 people that are attending the event to celebrate Australia Day, rocking out with their Australian flags, they're not offended by Australia Day.
Well, they didn't get polled, did they?
Clearly, no. You're going to go to Neferendi. You're going to go.
You're going to go to places where you got a whole bunch of people that are I guess unfortunately hate the way we live.
So if you ask the question, you'll get a certain response. But if you ask the question to the right people, you can completely manipulate that data. So it'll be very interesting to see the difference between round 1 and round 2 when they've extended it, to see what their data comes out and shows.
Well, I don't know how they can. How can they seriously justify that? Oh, we did a community consultation that we gave equal opportunity to the whole community with limited advertising, to be fair, but equal opportunity for people to go out and participate. We didn't like that result, So we've gone to the special interest groups that we know despise Australia Day, just to try and get a broader picture of what the community wants. I mean, that's bullshit.
And people like myself that they know are leading the charge to try and get people promoted to vote against this thing.
Yeah.
They never told. They didn't communicate with. There was no one
it's
said.
been done by stealth.
It took me going to the council chambers when they presented the data and asking questions and sending a subsequent email. And by the way, I don't want this to seem like a beat up on the staff at the City of Onkaparinga. A lot of them I work with for many years. They are really good, solid community, public servants. But they're driven by the new elected members who have an agenda and an agenda they're trying to push. And the saddest thing about this, for someone who hasn't been involved in local government and loves what local government can offer, it's those things, the real local things that will be missing out here. It's your roads, your rates, your rubbish, your parks, your community playgrounds, your libraries. These are the things you want your local government to be focusing on, instead of giving us 8% rate increases and going down these, climate change and emergency management bills, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean it's very clear with this new council in the City of Onkaparinga that they've got a set of agendas and a set of things that they want to achieve and destroy in their 4-year term.
Which is replicated across all South Australia, by the way. So if you look at your
across the country, it's replicated that way in councils. You get these hard left councils in that, because let's be honest, not many people pay much attention to what goes on in council. Like, not many people pay attention to what goes on in their own state politics, let alone local government. So like you said, death by 1,000 cuts. I think if we can undermine things that are special and important to Australians from the lowest level of government, it's a trickle-on effect, because they'll do it, the state government will do it, and then that's how suddenly you wake up one morning and this isn't the country that you were born in.
Yeah, and one of the ways they do that is they take advantage of the fact that Conservatives, when we run elections, whether it's federal, state, or local, we don't spend millions and millions of dollars left, right and centre to try and win votes. Labor can clearly just go out there and go, we promised this, we promised that. We saw it in the state election, the amount of money that was promised. We're paying for it now with inflation, no doubt.
Yeah.
But what we have is our values. And they take advantage of our values because they know when it comes to things like community surveys, we're going to go, well, we're actually really interested to see what the community's going to say. Where they will go, how do we manipulate this to get the result we want? So we're not playing from the same rule book, and that's where they've been taking advantage of Conservatives.
Look, what you see with the left in general is you see that they don't really care for democratic systems and democratic values. They all they care about is power, and you see, like, even with this voice stuff, they're trying to jam through this voice, which no one's been able to articulate to me how this is going to help the average Aboriginal person. They jam stuff like that through stealth, through basically, not telling the full truth, giving us the full picture about it. This is the same thing. This sort of stuff, like trying to destroy Australia Day events. They're doing it by stealth, by not really putting it out there. They put out a full page ad somewhere that this is what they want to ask about. Yeah, there'd be backlash, but they don't want to do it that way, because if they had a proper democratic process where everyone was in tune to what the actual questions and what was being asked, they'd fail, and they can't have that.
And we're seeing at a federal level, there's a lot of talk about some bills coming up to censor social media and misinformation.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That sort of stuff. It's like no, we don't really want you to have your say. We want you to comply, which is. That's getting close to totalitarianism, and that I think that's what if they're their perfect world, most people on the left, especially the Greens, we would be in a totalitarian state.
Yeah,
where what they said go. Yeah, that's right. If they were in control, that's how they'd want it.
Yeah, we spoke about it at the meeting we were at last night. So, I think some people fall into the trap of thinking that democracy is having a free and independent vote to put in a ballot paper that is independently counted by a third party. And I'd like to challenge people's thinking on that a little bit by going, if you would head to Russia at the moment, or China, and you took the Australian Election Commission over there, and you ran a completely impartial voting system, Putin, President Xi, they're getting up 70-80% of the vote.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, would you still argue that they live in a democratic nation? No, because they've got state media. They control state media. They control free speech. So it's the things around democracy, the free speech and freedom of association and religion and all these sort of things, they're the underpinning parts. The voting part is an important part, but it happens right at the end. We sometimes fixate on the voting part.
Yeah.
But in order to be free, you have to have freedom of thought and process. And on social media, who cares if someone puts on misinformation? If someone goes on and says the earth is flat onto social media, the great thing about social media is you have everyone underneath it making their case going why that person is wrong, and then you as an individual can make up your own mind. But this whole thing about freedom of suppression around misinformation is an insult to every Australian out there to say, oh, you're stupid enough to fall for that. Well, no, we're not. We just have freedom up there so everyone can make their own mind up for themselves. We don't need government getting in the way and telling us what we should or should not believe.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's how they're doing it. They've basically looked at that. They're playing the game a lot better than the conservative side of politics is. They're controlling social media. They're trying to get more control of social media, like with the truth police and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it'll get to a point where you can get on there and say that we've only got 10 years before catastrophe and the world's going to end, which is absolute effing ludicrousy. You can get on there and say that, and that's fine. But if you get on there and question COVID vaccine or question the Prime Minister, that's not going to be cool.
And that is a very good leeway into what is happening at the moment in terms of the voice, the government's messaging around the voice and how that's working, and some of the polling we're starting to see too. So I know it's a sort of the hot topic. We talk about it in pretty much every podcast, but it's probably the number one issue for our country right now. And I think it deserves the right to be spoken about as frequently as we do and other commentators do. The polling at the moment, you're saying in Queensland, it's looking like it's going to be lost, and hopefully lost quite badly in Queensland. Remembering we need a double majority, so we need majority of states, majority of people.
No, you need a double majority for it to pass.
For it to pass,
not for it to fail. Yeah.
So it needs a double majority to pass. Queensland's obviously leading the charge. I think it's going to be the easiest no. It's done and buried in Queensland. Look, you want people in Queensland to really push themselves because you want to see that number going up because that will help the overall picture as well.
Oh, look, I think most people have already decided.
Yeah.
Like most people that are voting no have already decided that. I think where you're going to see people dropping off is the yes vote. Now, I think the no vote's quite solid, and the percentages you see wherever it is in the country, I don't see that no. Well, the people that are solid no, that's not changing. The yes and the in doubts, I think, are very wobbly, and will add to the people that probably people the last few months that have been solid no's.
Yeah, because I think the more people they see and hear that are voting no, and they're going, "Oh, that person's a reasonable person. That person I know has empathy and cares for."
Oh, they're not racist.
They're not racist people. Oh. But when they start to see that, they go, "Hang on a minute. What is the detail?" We know there's a complete lack of detail. We know, the biggest question mark for most Australians on this is, one, lack of detail. Two, what is it actually planning to achieve, and how you're going to try and achieve that? And when people in that yes campaign, I think there's a bit of their vote that is still room to go towards the undecided, towards the no pretty quickly. That's a big concern for them.
Yeah. Look,
not for us.
The thing that's frustrating about the whole thing is the whole campaign is completely disingenuous. We already know what the problems are in our Indigenous communities, and really the problems are and a lot of conservatives won't necessarily like this, but the reality is we've got to spend a lot more money in those areas. But I'm not saying conservatives don't care. I'm just saying that we are generally we're conservative, so we try and conserve where we spend and a bit more, I guess, fiscally responsible. But the reality is we've got to spend billions and billions of dollars in those areas to build the infrastructure that they need, so that they don't run into the issues that they're running into now. Now, they're always going to have problems in any community, but the fact that they don't have reliable roads, they don't have reliable housing, they don't have reliable schooling or hospital systems where they are. That's why we've got this gap. We already know these problems, and that's the thing that's frustrating. Another layer of bureaucracy isn't going to fix those problems.
Well, without a good education, people are going to struggle to get a good job. Without a good job, you're going to struggle to put food on the family and provide for your family. Then there's going to be a high proportion, whether you're Aboriginal or not. Any community has the same problem. If you don't, if you don't have those fundamental parts and access to healthcare and these sort of things, a job don't provide, then you're going to see higher crime rates, less health outcomes, poorer education. Because if you don't value education, your kids won't value education, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Labor Party knows this. They know through their focus groups that this is the things that Australia are cottoning on to. So they've tried to do a reset. And Linda Burney's come out with her 4 things that she says the Voice will focus on. 1, how insulting is that, by the way? You want to create a voice to listen to Aboriginal people on the ground, but you're going to tell them the 4 things that
it's already
focused.
Oh, that sounds a great idea. Let's get this voice in when the minister's already predetermined what it's going to do.
Yeah, because what she said on ABC is, remember, I've been in Indigenous affairs for over 42 years. I know the problems.
She's been so successful.
If you know the problems on the ground, and she came out and she said things like the birth rates and health and education, and she said, not only do we know the problems, but they are completely preventable, and we should be doing something to address it. And it's what
the minister. She's the minister. It's her own portfolio. If she already knows the problem, she should be out there doing things to address it. And if you know that a voice isn't going to address anything,
but it's worse than that, right? It's completely worse than that, because if you know what the problems are, but you're also saying they are completely preventable, to make the claim that they're preventable means you know the solution.
It's her portfolio.
So I know the problems. Yeah, I know the solutions. It's my portfolio, but I'm going to spend $400 million on a referendum to get a voice up that's going to racially divide this country down lines for generations to come, because I want it to whack the Liberals when they're in power. That's not going to be.
That is what it's really about. Yeah. The whole voice. It is a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
It's basically the left's way of creating a permanent wedge for any Liberal Conservative government going forward. That their selected people will be able to whack that government if they don't listen to the voice. And it's just weaponizing. It's weaponizing Indigenous relations within this country, which is just really appalling.
I had someone from Queensland comment on one of my posts about the voice, and they did a picture of, I used one of these racists, and they had a photo of Tony Abbott.
Right.
Yeah, Peter Dutton. And in the photo was Jacinta Nampijira-Price. And they were calling me racist, just like her. And I thought, hang on a minute. There's a white guy.
Original.
There's a white guy from Queensland telling me I'm racist, just like Jacinta Nampijira-Price. It's a whole convoluted thing, and it comes back to the fundamental part about this when we said it's going to be weaponized to whack any Conservative government in the future. If they really wanted to listen to Aboriginal voices, remember, Aboriginals, just like any other race or group of people in the world, have a diversity of ideas and opinions. You're going to have a progressive people, you're going to have conservative people, because you know what? We give Aboriginal people in this country enough respect to say that they are individual, they have their own mind up. They've got some, obviously they're united by some cultural beliefs, and that's completely fine, something we should absolutely celebrate. But we're not going to say you all have to vote the same way, you always be the same birth, this is going to be your voice to Parliament. Because when you say to people like Jacinta Nampijira-Price or Senator Karen Little here in South Australia are racist or against the group thought of the Aboriginal people because they're in the No campaign, do you want to listen to Aboriginal voices, or do you want to listen to Aboriginal voices that are politically expedient for you and your cause? That is what Australians are waking up to very, very quickly.
Yeah, and that's completely correct. And I mean, this is the poison of the left, and this is what they do all over the world. It's quite insulting to lots of Indigenous groups of people or minority groups of people how they do it. But they seem to conflate them into one group of people. They do it in America with African Americans. African Americans all must think the same, and they all must want the same, and they almost have the same struggles. You know, they do that because it's part of it. It's how they work. They do have divisive racial divides, and that's how they segment people to have control over people. And they're doing exactly the same thing
We
here.
saw it with a public school here in Australia, where the school leadership put a new uniform in place. The school governing council approved it, and that uniform had the Aboriginal flag on one arm and the rainbow flag on the other arm. It failed to have this beautiful flag over here, the Australian flag, that actually unites them. It unites all of us. They had the two, and we spoke about this last week, and I had a bit of negative comments coming saying that we're homophobic or against trans community. That's not the case at all. Like, a natural thing as a conservative is freedom of opinion, and whatever you want to choose in your personal time, go for gold, do your hardest. That doesn't affect me. Just don't try and push those same things onto me. But just like The Voice, that left doctrine is the same. They try and get into the minority communities to create a wedge. They will do it to the
LGBTQI.
I need to rearrange my...
It changes regularly.
But again, how insulting to those communities. If you're a proud gay man or a proud lesbian gay woman, and all of a sudden you've got these lobby focus groups putting you in the same category as trans and gender neutral, and what's the link between a gay man?
But that's what I'm saying.
How insulting that you have to be that.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what they do. They look at this group of people. They're not looking at they're not, the left are not about the individual. The left are about looking at a group of people that they can cluster into one little homogenous group, and they can weaponize those people, even though within that group itself there are a variety of different views. But that's what they do. They do it all over the world.
And the sad thing about this is, if you are one of the people in those groups that has a more conservative, right-leaning value,
you're cancelled.
You get cancelled. You get pushed to the side and saying you're not one of us.
Yeah. Like that. Like you back to what you said about the white guy in Queensland talking about Jacinta Price being a racist. Well, she's a racist because she dared to have a different opinion to that group that you've fictitiously put together, calling it the Australian Aboriginals, as if they all think the same, they all vote the same, and they've all got the same needs. She dared to think outside of that square. Like, what a shame.
Again, this same white guy went on to say something like, "You're just another white middle-aged bloke. You need an education." And I had a look at his Facebook, and he was another white middle-aged bloke, and I said, "Well, maybe it's not an education you need. What you might need is a mirror, because you." You have to go on me saying something exactly what you are. It's divisive. I'm a strong supporter of rights for anyone, but we are all together as Australians. We are all together on this journey, and you don't have diversity and celebration of diversity when you divide people, and that's what the left try and do. And I think people are starting to wake up to that again. You look at feminists in this country and worldwide, they're waking up to the fact that trans athletes, in female sports, and
dominating.
We've all worked.
Men are dominating in female sports,
and as a society, we have worked so bloody hard to make it an even playing field in sports and these sort of things, and to give the females the rights to participate and be celebrated for their athletic brilliance and their work ethics. And then they would just allow biological males who've gone through puberty to participate in those sports and essentially beat them. That's not celebrating womanhood at all. And you can celebrate people who want to identify as whatever they wish, and you can allow them to do so on their own individual basis, but you can't let them then take over other things that as a society we've been fighting for 100 years now. So
100%.
Oh my goodness. One of the things that we want to have a quick touch on is we've spoken about it a little bit before, but the war that's happening between Russia and the Union at the moment. This week, President Biden announced that
it's a special operation, Simon.
Yes,
special operation. It's not a war. It's a special operation.
No, my social points just went down on there. But this week, President Biden announced that America will be providing cluster ammunition to Ukraine, and that's been the talk of all media outlets, whether it's Fox, CNN, left, right, having their opinion on it. Me personally, I actually think it's a fair decision by President Biden. I don't think I've ever said that before.
President Biden didn't make the decision.
He signed a paper.
He signed a piece of paper. Yeah. But yeah, the administration.
To be fair, if we want to bag the bloke on the other decisions that he hasn't made, we should give him the credit for this decision he also hasn't made.
The administration made made a good choice. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, for Rishi Sunak to be out there saying that he's not comfortable with it and it goes against their values and all this sort of stuff, I'm thinking, hang on, mate, you're sending regular artillery shells and ammunition that kill people. Why? Like, it's always bemused me that people will have a problem with a certain weapon in warfare, but not have a problem with another one. The reality is, when you go to war, you are there to kill people. And especially in this situation where the other side is already using that munition against you, like I don't really see the problem.
Well, I think we probably should just explain what this cluster ammunition is. So, actually, it's an ammunition that will come in as a large bomb, or will be your army 2 million.
It's artillery shell. They're an artillery shell with
sort of get 150 feet off the ground, and it will have this initial explosion, which will scatter a whole bunch of smaller artillery all around a field, which is say a size of a football field, that then will explode, and anything in that area will then be completely destroyed. Obviously, you don't need the same precision in your ammunition that the real expensive artillery will have. But it's really effective in trenches, and that's what the Russians have done well during the winter. They've dug in a trench almost similar to what we saw in World War II.
Well, World War One. Yeah. It's a bit like the Western Front in World War One is what they've across the Donbass in particular. That's really what they've done. They're what military talk, you'd say they're entrenched. So it's very hard, and they've got obstacles and stuff. So it's very hard for heavy equipment to move across that ground, and because they are entrenched, it's very hard for infantry to attack those positions without heavy losses. So artillery can definitely be effective in those areas, but cluster artillery will be far more effective in removing those trenches and obstacles.
The really expensive, precise, targeted ammunition is really good at hitting big target things, whether it's a warship or an energy supply, a fuel supply, tank, whether it might be.
Battalion HQs, but when you're hitting those sorts of like that sort of stuff, that's what it's good for.
But when you have a trench that is completely over the whole front, you need something that can just wipe out an area and create a pathway for people to come through. And the second part of that is very similar in terms of the landmines the Russians have put down.
Yeah.
If you want to clear that area, you need to blow it up as quickly as you can, so you can get your heavy equipment over.
Keep in mind, you're only going to knock out probably half those landmines by doing that too. And that's just purely by vibration from pure force from the explosion. A lot of those landmines will detonate, but yeah, you still got that risk, but it makes it a little clearer path.
And the people who are against supplying the cluster ammunition try and make the analogy between landmines and how many people it's killed.
Yeah, they're not the same.
And look, it's not the same. It's still a legitimate concern, but in this situation, the concern that you can mitigate 10 years from now is a concern you want to mitigate, because that means you've still got a country. It means you've still got people to defend. If they lose this war, they don't have a country. It is. People have to remember this is war. And a loss is so much more devastating than spending millions of dollars to try and clear a field later on. Who cares? But it's not the same as traditional landmines that you step on and would disturb. It would take a fair disturbance to make these things go off if they haven't gone off in the original explosion.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think from all the US studies, they're saying that 98% of them do detonate. So yeah, you've always got a risk, but I mean, you've got a risk with anything. Like you drop a paved way missile from a F-18 to hit a precision target. Some of those don't detonate too. I mean, that's just some rounds don't go off. But from a rifle, you have that in war.
They're built with a trigger mechanism where you step on them, they go off. It's not the way they're built. They're built to go off when the explosions around them set off other explosions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's they're like a it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Basically, one goes off and then it spreads across that field of action. But yeah, I don't really have any. I mean, it's a war. They that they need to, if the enemy's using something and you're not using it out of some sort of moral virtue, well, shame on you, really.
On the political side of these things, most things I've been able to follow and go, I can provide a rationale for the way that Putin or Zelensky will be doing things. I can understand what they're trying to achieve. One of the things that has really perplexed me is this Wagner situation.
Yeah.
Prigozhin, his attempted coup, if you want to call it that, on Russia, and then he got within 150 miles of Moscow and on the Kremlin building. And then there was this deal with the Belarusian president, Belarus. He went over to Belarus. Now apparently he's back in Russia and people haven't seen him. Like, to me, it's sort of two scenarios is what I can sort of put it down to in my head. One, this bloke's dead already, and they're creating a smokescreen about where he is and isn't, which is probably a good idea because they don't want to make a martyr out of him. If he is alive and he's in Russia and travelling freely between Belarus and Russia, Putin has lost complete control over his own country. And which one?
Oh, no. I'd be bold statement here on Adelaide Conservatives. That guy's dead.
Oh, yeah.
That's not.
He has to be dead.
It's just not. It's not feasible, given what he did for Putin. Well, even if what he did happened in a Western democracy, he would still be arrested. Like, you know, he might still be alive, but he'd be locked up somewhere. They couldn't allow him to roam free, given what he's done.
Well, you're right. If someone got a private military unit and they marched towards Canberra, the Australian government locked that person up for sure. But
probably need one APC.
You just can't. I just can't imagine a situation where he could be travelling in his own private jet between Belarus, Russia, apparently going to the Kremlin building itself and having a meeting.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff's just, you know, I mean, that's a lot of fiction. I think a lot of those stories.
Well, Putin came out himself and has claimed that they had a meeting 5 days after the insurrection took place within Russia. I think that's a classic. People have to remember, Vladimir Putin wasn't someone who came up the political ranks. He was a KGB agent. He was trained completely in the art of spy and deception and those sort of things. That's his bread and butter. So yeah. So when he says something, you shouldn't take it as gospel. You really should question it.
That's if he even said it. Did it come from the state media, or was it just something out of? That's the trouble. I think a lot of the stuff that comes out of there, you take with a grain of salt.
But you presume too, in such a totalitarian government, that if it's on state media, Putin's given it the approval to be. You wouldn't think someone's just going rogue, and it's the one part of this war that's completely confused me, and I don't know where it sits. And I'm almost certain that. It's an interesting phone call. Whew. I won't say who that was.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, no, that's secret. Yeah. Sorry, you're saying that.
It's the one part that has completely thrown me about this war. I don't know where it sits, and I don't know what that means for Russia and the leadership within Russia. But the one thing I am certain of, we don't know this, but I'm absolutely certain that the American government know it. Their intelligence around this is you know, the Russians leak like a sieve. There's no security around their communications. People start to talk. It's being listened to. We don't know, but the Americans know, and therefore the Ukrainians know exactly what's happening within Russia, and they will exploit that as any way they can on the battlefield.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's very messy what's going on there, and I don't think you'll ever know 100% what the truth is, you know, around any of what's been going on there since the special operations.
Well, Albanese has gone to the NATO summit, and he's met with Zelensky.
Yeah.
And he's announced 30 Bushmaster tanks to go over. Now the Bushmasters, you might know more about that than I.
Oh, I don't know. They were after my time in the military, so I'm not very familiar with them. But yeah, they're basically a light infantry fighting vehicle.
They were certainly in demand. It's the one thing that Ukrainians were saying to Australia: give us the Bushmasters. That's what we want. That's what we need. The question I had when I was watching that coverage with Albanese, he waited to the not the G7, the NATO summit.
Yep.
To go over there, meet Zelensky, and during that meeting, the 30 were announced. Now, Zelensky was asking for these months ago. They've started their counter-offensive. And the only part of me goes, is it wrong to wait to the politically good moment so he can get the most media exposure to announce Australian investment, or should we have given them?
What did you expect? Anything less from Albo?
But
or the ALP for that matter?
Or if we can give them months ago when they needed them. They needed them as a lead up to this counter-offensive, not halfway through it when it's stalling a little bit.
Oh, look, to be fair, 30 Bushmasters is just a drop in the ocean, really, for what they do need. But yeah, it's a bit tokenistic to me.
And the timing, why wait until you're meeting with Zelensky?
I mean, I look at
they've been sitting there. To be honest, we're not using them.
I look at the Abrams tanks that we've got here, like the most sophisticated fighting tank in the world. I have serious doubts to whether we're actually ever going to use them. Like, we could probably send the Abrams tanks over there, because the reality is, if a foreign invader gets to Australia and we need those Abrams tanks, we're in deep shit anyway.
Well, I think that's what people need to remember. So when you look at aid to Ukraine, every Western country is trying to weigh up how much aid to give and how much you need in reserves to keep your sovereign protection in place.
Yeah.
So that's what Australia is also in that situation. And tanks for Australia have always been used in foreign conflict. So when we are protecting democracies around the world or interests of Western countries around the world, we don't use them on Australian soil.
No, we've never had to.
An island continent.
Yeah.
People coming over here have to come by a ship, it said.
It'll be a logistic nightmare. But
look at Russia was supposed to be one of the biggest armies in the world, and logistically they can't go over a fake border. Coming to Australia via big ocean liners that can be sunk at any stage from these countries.
Yeah.
Tanks for us is not part of our capability of self-defense. It's our way we can project power internationally, but a small part of what we can do to protect ourselves here in Australia. You need a bit for sure. But that begs the question, why are we not providing these tanks or some of them to...
Oh, look, that's a question for the Defence Department. I mean, at the moment they're going through quite an overhaul with the Australian Defence Department, because they're sort of cutting spending in some areas and upping spending in other areas. We've got nuclear subs coming. Oh, one thing too, all this one thing that the government fails to articulate is all this extra money that we're giving to Ukraine, that they're carrying on like Richard Miles is carrying on like that's some sort of gift. It's not a gift. You're sucking it out of the defence budget. It's money already allocated to defence that you're giving them. So yeah, that's just a bit disingenuous of the government, I think, to make it sound like we're doing all these extra billions of dollars and look at us, but no, you're actually draining our own defence in order to do that.
Which in itself is not necessarily a bad thing in this situation, but be upfront, be honest about it.
No, it was a smoke screen.
Don't act like you.
Yeah, it was a smoke screen to try and make project our virtue to the rest of the world, but really we're taking the money out of. We're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul to do it.
Yeah. The thing it has highlighted though is, in the past, people have been fascinated with the numbers, how many of whatever you have, but the Western doctrine around this sort of stuff has been about capability.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the Western weapons that have been used to great effect, the capability, if you have something that is so precise that the Western countries are providing, and they can just go, there's a target, bang, gone.
Yeah.
Where the Russians will go, I've got this in abundance, but I'm going to fire them left, right, and say, oh, they're all missing, and more civilian loss, there's more casualties, and you're not getting the effects of the battle.
Older tech, basically.
Yeah. So it's that mindset of, it's not the number game that it was during World War I, World War II, it's the capability game of, I need to hit targets, specific targets to make a difference on the battlefield.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I don't know how it ends.
That's right. I think we're a long way off it ending.
The scary thing for me is, I don't know how it ends, but I don't think world leaders know how it ends either, and that's the part you're going.
Oh, look, I think most of them can see that this will be a protracted, continuous war, just like after 2014. I think most of them are smart enough to know that. The rhetoric might not suggest that, but I think they all know that this is just, like I've said before, this is just going to be a great opportunity for some of those Western countries to recycle their old crap.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of online commentators when Wagner was pushing towards the Kremlin and was going to, apparently Putin was off in his private plane leaving.
Yeah, he would have been out.
And they're going,
truly.
oh, this is what we're waiting for. I'm not sure if that's what you are waiting for because.
Oh no! I just sometimes it's better the devil you know. I think.
And if that devil is doing poorly on the battlefield, you don't want to be replaced with someone who might be more capable.
No, I think what's to follow from we don't know what would follow from Putin. It could be far worse.
Oh, and another thing that I think of quite regularly, we all understand and we think about Ukraine and the Ukrainian civilians, but the average Russian family out there that doesn't follow politics or the world, like these people here are suffering immensely. We've seen maybe 50,000 deaths from Russian young men on the battlefield.
Well, I mean,
maybe 200,000.
The figures vary a lot, but I mean, I think
if you're
I think Ukrainian figures, like that's trouble with Ukraine too. I think Ukrainian figures are complete fluff as to what they're saying is happening there, because what they're saying was happening, the war would have been over months ago.
Which you understand, they're in the middle of a war. They're trying to get propaganda to get more weapons and ammunition. They're able to project victory. But
I don't think Western powers do that.
No,
and that's one trouble I have with Ukraine. Yes, I hope they're successful in this, but they're full of shit as well. And then that's why they're not in the EU. That's why that's why they're not in NATO. Is because they are essentially a corrupt country as well.
Yeah, there's certainly corruption within their country in a higher level. Because a couple of countries recently are coming into to NATO, and still the couple of things they need to tick off is corruption. And when you say corruption, you're not saying the whole country is corrupt, but there's corruption within that country that needs to be addressed if you're going to have Western money and power and knowledge coming into you.
Yeah, you understand. Ukraine's got a long way to go. Like that. That's like
from a NATO perspective. I mean, Ukraine's different because you don't want to make someone a NATO member during the war because Article 5 will say that.
Well, no, if you do that, you're at war straight away. So that will never happen. Yeah.
And that's stage. But during peacetime, if you're NATO, you've got some of the most advanced technology, thinking, surveillance in the world and a lot of money. You don't want to allow someone into that group that has corrupt elements within it, and there could be leaks. You need to be watertight. You need to be watertight to be within that. So,
and it is.
Yeah.
So that's why it works so well, because it is watertight, and that's why you like.
But I think that's what the average person forgets. Why don't you just make them all part of the NATO and then Russia's stuff? But that's not the way it works. But
no.
Because, I mean, even look at Ukraine itself, Crimea, Donbass region, it's got maybe 70% people who are ethnically Russian-speaking people.
Yeah, well, those areas are essentially...
And there's nothing wrong.
They're essentially Russian.
That's who they are.
Russian by their culture. So... I mean, yeah, that could be the end game, is that Crimea and Donbass get ceded officially to Russia, and the other areas, come back to Ukraine. I mean, that's probably, I think that'd be the only end game that you're ever likely to get Russia to agree to.
Well, you want to see a political end to this war. You don't want to see anything else, because anything else is.
I don't think we're seeing a military end to this war as such. I think it's entrenched now.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of just how many people have to die before there's some sort of political resolution.
I'm completely not confident about this at all, but I think the way it's going to finish would be Ukraine make some advancements on the counteroffensive.
Yeah.
There's turmoil in Russia. Putin becomes, kicked out, hostile. The new leader of Russia does a deal with Zelensky, and whether that means Donbass or Crimea, but to create peace and save lives, a deal will be made.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately what will happen. Yeah.
But we'll find out.
We'll find out in time. Yeah.
Right, Luke, another great podcast.
Thank you, mate.
A couple of guests coming up.
Yes.
We have Sarah Game.
Yes, we do. Yep.
One Nation here in South Australia, and one of our good friends, a friend to us in the southern suburbs here in particular, Laura Henderson's coming on as well.
Yes, we'll look forward to that.
I think a lot of South Australians need to hear Laura's story and what she has been able to deliver in her short time in Parliament.
100%. Easy.
Thank you.
Done. Thanks.